So the Epstein files, people are very fascinated by this. Hi, Julie. And I've noticed this is the one thing that scares Donald Trump profusely. He's also not living in reality. He keeps changing the truth of his reality because this is a story of his own making. Because if you notice in the when he was on the campaign trail, he was asked point blank, "Would you release the Epstein files?" And he said, "Yes. I don't see why not." And then he decided, and he said this on the campaign trail many, many times. And then he went to Pam Bondi, can release whatever she feels is credible, to It Doesn't Exist, to It Was Written by Obama, Hillary, Biden, Brennan, to everyone should stop talking about it, to it's a Democratic hoax. He's such a liar. He doesn't know what's what and who's who. And you have to ask yourself why is he trying to 86 the Epstein files? Is he in it? Are his friends in it? Who is he protecting? Because if you're not in it, then you would have no problem releasing it and say, okay, go ahead and release it. But he's scared and he doesn't want it released. The problem is, under the Bush administration, Jeffrey Epstein was already being investigated. So this is way before then. And yesterday, the Wall Street Journal published a damning expose about a letter that Trump wrote for Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday party and said, "I'm going to sue." The question you have to ask yourself is, well, if it's a hoax, I don't care if you published it, it's a hoax. It doesn't matter to me. Why am I going to sue? Why sue? It's a hoax, right? A hoax is a joke. Ha, 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 you got me. Okay, no need to sue, right? J.D. Vance went one step further and turned on his boss by saying, release the letter. Although J.D. Vance knows that he's next in line for the presidency. And so he would say that, right? He would say that. That being said, this is a mess of Donald Trump's own making. And could have easily been prevented by saying, yes, the Epstein files do exist. Yes, I said I'd release them. And yes, I will when I'm ready to. That's all he had to say. Instead, he's digging a deeper hole for himself every time by changing the story. By changing the story. And this is the story that Trump is most afraid of. And he doesn't understand. The other story was, he said, I don't understand what people's fascination with this is. Why won't they let him go? Well, it's not a hoax because Donald Trump was profiled in a 1982 New York article where Donald Trump was quoted as saying of Jeffrey Epstein, he's my best friend. He's one of my dearest, closest best friends. On the flip side, Jeffrey Epstein in audios is heard saying the same thing. We're saying, Donald Trump is my closest friend. Okay, if you don't know the guy, you never met him, and you had nothing to do with him, how can he be your best friend? How can he be your closest friend? If you don't know the guy, how are you in pictures with him? How are there videos of you and him together back in the 80s? How are there how did two victims kill themselves and one giving a statement saying that, yeah, they were raped and name calling Jeffrey Epstein? Now, I'm not a lawyer by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm also not stupid. When people start to turn on you and you're telling people to shut up and don't mention it anymore, and then Fox happily obliges, I mean, your MAGA base may be stupid, but the people not in the cult aren't. And when somebody is trying desperately to cover something up because they know something and they don't want it out there, they are going to go to many, 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 many lengths and do everything they can to cover up the story, no matter the cost, even though that means eliminating people who can talk. Exhibit A is James Comey's daughter, who was the U.S. Attorney General working on the Epstein case. Now, she said she was fired for no reason at all. And according to the Attorney General's office, it was Article 2 that saying there was just cause. But let's back up a little bit. The Wall Street Journal approached Donald Trump on a Tuesday night and said, we have this evidence, we have this damning hit piece on you that we may or may not publish. It's depending on you. Donald Trump called his buddy, Rupert Murdoch, who owns the Wall Street Journal, who also owns Fox, by the way, and called Rupert and said, kill it. Rupert Murdoch said, let's see what he can do. Wednesday, Comey's daughter is fired. Thursday night, that piece gets published in the Wall Street Journal. Now, are all these related? Is it possible that the lawyer, like Comey, the lawyer, leaked to the Wall Street Journal? I don't know. Is it a coincidence? I don't know. Maybe. But they didn't publish the letter. They just posted quotes and snippets that, and some are sexual in nature, which is not surprising considering the Access Hollywood tape from a few years ago. Now, would the Wall Street Journal ever publish that letter? Because that letter would damage Donald Trump and most likely would force him to resign. Now, Donald Trump is angry at Rupert Murdoch because he couldn't, he says, I couldn't kill the article. So he's suing. But if you say it's a hoax, then why sue? Why are you panicking? Because if it's a hoax, it's just a joke. Ha, ha, ha. You got us. And that's it. But you can't say it's a hoax. You can't say it's a hoax and then start panicking and saying, okay, we're filing a lawsuit. And yes, you could sue for anything under the sun. But if it's a joke, as you claim it is, then there's nothing to worry about, right? Then if you're saying the Wall Street Journal made it up and it's a hit piece, just a damage, okay. If the Epstein files don't exist, as you claim they don't, or if it's a hoax, as you claim it is, then how do you explain Ghislaine Maxwell sitting in jail serving a 20-year sentence? Who happened to be dead? Because if the files don't exist, Maxwell shouldn't be in prison, right? She should be a free woman because she had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein, right? Because it didn't happen, right? And she's not talking because she is hoping that Donald Trump gives her a pardon at the end of his term. And if she talks, she doesn't get the pardon. Her trial is ongoing. And if she talks, she can talk and get a plea deal, right? Maybe some sort of a plea deal. But politically, this is not good for Donald Trump. And when MAGA is turning on you 115%, and they start cursing him out, you have to ask yourself, is this it? Has MAGA had enough of this stupidity? Have they had enough of this nonsense? Is this where they draw the line where MAGA, where they're saying, okay, if you're protecting child molesters and where you're raping underage girls, do we draw the line here? And then there are others who are still going to stand by him no matter what and believe whatever he says. And why does the House, why do the Republicans in the Congress need to vote to block the list from being released? Why are they doing that? Is it because Mike Johnson is Trump's bitch and his master told him to do that? Or are there people in Congress that are on that list too, and they're afraid of it getting out? The rule of thumb is the more you want something to go away, the more people are going to be curious to know what or who. Because if you keep talking about it in the sense of, we don't want to talk about it anymore, you have to wonder, why are they so adamant on not you wanting to discuss it? What are they afraid of? Who are they protecting? And why is Congress now suddenly holding votes to block this list? Are they trying to protect Donald Trump? Are they trying to protect colleagues in the House? Are they trying to protect their friends? This is a whole conspiracy cover-up. Because I can guarantee you that if the House and Senate were being controlled by the Democrats right now, Donald Trump would have already been impeached. And he's done so many things that would warrant his impeachment. For instance, he's basically trying to get rid of the court systems by having Emil Bovai, his lawyer from the Stormy Daniels trial, be confirmed to the Second Circuit courts. And the Senate is rushing this through as if it's a priority. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that former DOJ employees, former judges, former senators are sending letters warning them not to do this because it'll have irreparable damage forever. Because when you're nominated, because once you're appointed to the Second Appeals Circuit courts, that is one step away from being a Supreme Court judge. And I say this because whistleblowers came forward to let people know that Emil Bovai is the one who's writing in letters, defy the courts. It's not Stephen Miller alone. It's Emil Bovai who's saying, defy the courts. And you can imagine what would happen. He gets nominated, he gets confirmed for the Second Appeals Court, And shortly thereafter, either Clarence Thomas is forced out, is forced to retire, or Alito is forced to retire. And guess who gets nominated to take their spot? That's right, Bove. And guess what happens? There'll be no stopping Donald Trump with checks and balances. The Constitution will be gone, and Donald Trump will be able to do whatever he pleases, from ending freedom of speech to freedom of press. Things he's already trying to do, by the way, when he kicked the AP out of the press pool because they refused to call Gulf of America, the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, even though it is Gulf of Mexico and always will be. The other thing is immigration. And I've said this many, many times that the immigration deportation is something that is reminiscent of Nazi Germany. Because Nazi Germany, if you want to look at that analogy, you can look at the people being deported. Just look at the Jews. Because the Jews were the ones that were deported. They were thrown into trains like cattle, sent to deportation camps or concentration camps where they were in unsanitary conditions. They had little to eat, and they were slave laborers. And some people have said to me, how can you compare the two? Trump is not having people digging their own graves or being shot. And I'm like, that still doesn't mean he's not taking the playbook out of Hitler. You mean to tell me that alligator Alcatraz or alligator Auschwitz is normal? You mean to tell me that it's okay to arrest people because they don't look white, because they have a Spanish name? If my name is Raul Lopez and I'm an American citizen, no criminal record, you're going to deport me based on the fact that I'm Hispanic and I may have committed some crime? Well, hi, Earl. Well, let me put it to you this way. You need a warrant to arrest people. And the Constitution says all men are created equal. That means no matter who or what you are, everyone's entitled to due process. It doesn't matter. Everyone's entitled to their day in court. Okay? Since when does law enforcement knock you to the ground and beat you up? The United States has now resorted themselves to kidnapping. We don't kidnap people in this state. But that is not what they're doing. It's basically you're walking to work, you're on a bike, you're going to work, say a Home Depot or something, and suddenly masked men in unmarked cars are coming, grabbing you, throwing you to the ground. And when they're being asked to ID themselves and they say, we don't have to ID themselves, well, you have people in the Proud Boys pretending to be ICE people. They've taken on upon themselves to become bounty hunters. And they're being masked. Why are they wearing masks? Because they know they're doing wrong, but they don't want to be identified and be held accountable when they do. But we've taken away their dignity, which is what the Nazis did to the Jews. Their humanity is gone, which is what happened to the Jews. And they've lost all faith, which is what happened to the Jews. And people were never seen or heard from ever again, which is exactly what happened to the Jews in the concentration camps. So if you're going to say to me they're not being shot or they're digging their own graves, that's what your focus is on. That's what your focus is on. And so you're okay with this? As a Jewish person, how can you, a Trump supporter, be okay with deportations when it happened to your ancestor? That's an insult and offensive at the same time. And you should be ashamed of yourself to say it's not the same. The analogies are there. And you have to call alligator Alcatraz for what it is, which is a modern-day Auschwitz in Florida. And not only do they find this funny, but the Trump administration is talking to other red states to build more of these detention camps. And that's why the Epstein files is what Donald Trump is using to deflect with other things. Every time people start talking about things he doesn't want to discuss, he'll make a distraction for something else entirely. For instance, the Jerome Powell being fired. Now, I want to point out to the fact that Trump always said that Joe Biden was Sleepy Joe, and that Joe Biden had dementia. Yet Donald Trump can't remember that he was the one who nominated Jerome Powell to be the Federal Reserve Chairman in his first term. He keeps saying he doesn't know who nominated him, and then he said he can't believe that Joe Biden would nominate such a guy. And if you look back on videotapes, the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell, was nominated in 2016 during Donald Trump's first term. And then again, he was renominated again by Joe Biden by his presidency. Donald Trump is the same age as Joe Biden. Yet Joe Biden didn't have dementia. Joe Biden remembered things, and Joe Biden didn't talk nonsense or bullshit with a question. For instance, Donald Trump was in Pittsburgh the other day for some innovative summit, and he started telling the story about his uncle, Dr. John, and how he was Ted Kaczynski's teacher at MIT. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. And he went on the story saying that he asked his uncle what he thought of Ted Kaczynski. He said, Ted Kaczynski's a great man, and he's going to be going to great places. There's only one problem. There's only two problems here. Number one is Donald Trump's uncle died in 1978, which would have made it impossible for him to ever have met Ted Kaczynski, let alone be his teacher. But Ted Kaczynski never attended MIT. But yet he's telling the story and going to very great detail about how he was the perfect student. Now, if you knew your uncle, if you say Uncle John, you should know things about your uncle, right? If your uncle taught him, wouldn't you know that? I mean, wouldn't there be pictures of your? Wouldn't there be a lesson plan? It's easy to confirm this stuff because schools keep records. Ted Kaczynski never went to MIT. In fact, I don't think he ever went to Massachusetts either, but that's a whole different story. And when they asked Caroline Leavitt, the blonde bimbo press secretary, to comment on that story, surprise, surprise, she didn't want to say anything. She didn't want to say anything. But if Joe Biden rambled like that, you can bet your bottom dollar they would complain. They would complain. They would say he has dementia. He's not fit to be president. They need to investigate. Meantime, Donald Trump speaks nonsense, makes shit up, rambles like a raving madman. But no, he's a stable genius. He's Donald Trump. He's the greatest president out there. Really? He's better than George Washington. He's better than Abraham Lincoln. He's better than I mean, really? So if I'm asking you a question, what do you think about if you ask a question like, I don't know, do you think the tariffs will end anytime soon? And I go, well, the tariffs, it's a great thing, for years we've been taken advantage of. And by the way, what's your name? Like, he's all over the place, can't answer a straight question. When he's asked specific questions, and he's like, what do you think of Pam Bondi? What do I think Pam Bondi? Well, I don't think that's a good question to ask me. You can ask Pam Bondi yourself. And by the way, we have a terrific economy going. We have a terrific trade deals going. Like, Nobody asked you about trade deals. People asked you about your attorney general, which, by the way, speaking of which, Donald Trump rejected a special counsel to look into the Epstein files. And are you surprised that he said no? Are you surprised? Because, again, if you're innocent, you'd happily say, sure, go ahead. Hire a special prosecutor, hire a special investigator to investigate the Epstein list. Sure, no problem. But when you say, I vehemently refuse to have a special investigator, that's just showing the world that you are guilty. Because if you're not guilty, what are you afraid of? Why are you afraid of what Donald Trump, of what they find on the Epstein list? This is the one thing that scares Donald Trump. And he's doing everything he can to make it go away. But every time he makes it go away, he makes it worse. He makes it worse. And this is a mess of his own doing. And you know what? This is probably going to be his downfall. This is probably going to be his downfall because this is what everyone is talking about now. Because his story was changing every second time. First it exists, so I'll release it. Now it's up to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, to find out what's credible. Now it doesn't exist. Now it was a thing that was written up by Obama, Hillary, Joe Biden, James Comey, John Brennan, to it's a Democratic hoax, to can we please stop talking about it, to I'm going to sue the Wall Street Journal for publishing a hit piece on me. His reality is so warped, he doesn't know which reality is true anymore. Like I personally believe that Donald Trump has a mental illness, that he has dementia, that he's senile. He can't remember anything. He can't remember that it was him who nominated Jerome Powell in his first term and thinks Joe Biden did it. He thinks that using threats and being a bully, he'll get what he wants, but no, threats don't work. And the White House is not your own personal mafia house. You are not a mob boss, so stop acting like one. You are not above the law. You can't say you're for law and order except when it's convenient for you. It doesn't work like that. Harry Truman said, the buck stops here. And what he meant by that is the buck stops with me. Why? Because I am the president. I'm the one that's being held accountable because I'm the one who nominated these people to be in my cabinet. And if they do something wrong, I should be held accountable for their actions and admit responsibility to that and deal with that. Because that is what a leader does. A real leader, a true leader, sets the example for everybody else because they emulate what you do in any job. If you want respect, you got to give it. And they emulate what you do. And as a leader, you need to lead by example. And when you say, it's good for me, but not thee, well, then it's just being hypocritical. That's just saying, I can do it because I'm the president. You can't do it. So okay. So it's okay if you kill somebody, but if I do it, I'm going to jail. Is that what you're saying? I mean, I like the law. And you may not like the law, but that's the law. If the law says you need to pay You have to pay. And when you have people in Congress like Mike Johnson, who claims he's a devout Christian, but yet has no morals or ethics, but continually quotes the Bible, you got to laugh at that, because you can't say you're a devout Christian that follows the word of God, but then takes the word of a sex offender, a felon, and a pathological liar, and agree with him and do his bidding, and then go on national television and say, this is, and then start quoting God, but then you take away everyone's insurance and their benefits, and then start quoting God and saying God's people, will of God, and this. Because doesn't the Bible say, love thy neighbor as you love yourself? Doesn't it say, lest he who shall not be sin cast the first stone? So you can't have it both ways. You're either a man of God and you follow the ways of God, or you follow a path down of evil. But you can't have it, but you can't do both. You can't be good and you can't be evil. You're either. So you can't have it both ways. I'm sorry about that. I had a call that was spam. But you can't have it both ways. Because God doesn't say, screw people over. God says, love your fellow man. And I admit, I'm not the perfect Jew. I'm Jewish, but I'm not the perfect Jew. But I do know that people can tell the difference between right and wrong. And the house needs to, and for a God-fearing person, then you should hold the people who are wronging you accountable. And Donald Trump needs to be held accountable for what he's doing. And Congress, because they've abdicated all their power, Donald Trump, they've enabled him instead of putting him into place. And there's a reason why there's a separation between executive branch and the legislative branch. There's a reason why no president tells Congress what to do and vice versa. There's a reason for it. But I don't know how anybody can live with themselves when they're okay with deportations, when they're okay with these conditions, taking away people's humanity and their rights. And the new one that he's doing is now giving ICE full control over Medicaid, which is highly unethical, highly illegal, and invading people's privacy. And they're using the medical records to find people who shouldn't be on Medicaid in order to deport them. But again, there is no law, to my knowledge, that says you cannot be on Medicaid or SNAP. And even if that is true, you don't have a right to go into someone's personal files with a lot of privacy, with a lot of private information on there for nefarious purposes. And told, and I said to people myself, I said, it's going to come to the point where you're going to have immigrants that have to wear some identification tag, aka the equivalent to the yellow star that Jews wore, to differentiate between illegals and not. Is going to be a time when they're going to go to your houses and see if you're hiding anybody there, or to go to your house directly. In fact, ICE is doing that just now. Today, I actually read that they're going to landlords in New York to find out about the tenants that live in the buildings. And this mega bill that these people, the Congress, Johnson, who said he's a man of God, the guy who said he's a devout Catholic, and passed this bill, essentially is kicking Americans off their insurance plans to give all the money to ICE, and basically giving Trump an army to build, which is ICE. Hiring more ICE agents, basically Trump building his own army and what I like to call his own Gestapo for Nazi Germany 2.0. And as much as it pains me to say this, as much as people refuse to believe this is true. And it's already happening. And people are just in denial about it. And this is only the beginning. Imagine the power that ICE is going to get. Once they have the funding in place, imagine the power Donald Trump's army is going to get. We will become a police state, a country under martial law. And we will be living with curfews. We will be told, and you're going to see it's happening already. And Donald Trump has been trying to suppress the freedom of the press with freedom of speech and freedom of the press. You don't like what's written about you? You sue. Okay. You don't like what's being said about you, so we fire them like I did with Stephen Colbert. Jon Stewart, you're next. We are going to live in a state where they tell us what to think, what to say, what to watch, what to read, where we can go, where we're not to go. I, for one, enjoy my freedom. I enjoy my being opinionated. I like my rights. And I like the fact that I can tell the difference between right and wrong, and I can think for myself. And that is slowly, and we see it being slowly taken away from us. Because MAGA doesn't like facts. And when you try to call them out on it, they resort to childish names by calling you names like retard, snowflake, libtard, stupid. Instead of having a decent conversation and asking why like we used to do, they resorted to childish names and spreading hate and fear. Nobody ever knew what DEI was. Okay, it was affirmative action. That's what it was called. But until DEI came, until Donald Trump mentioned DEI, nobody cares. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew what woke was. And by the way, woke is a good thing. Woke is defined in Webster's dictionary as an ideology of innovative ideas where people's thought processes are explored. That is the definition of woke, more or less. And Trump has said it has to go. We're too woke. DEI has to go. And then blaming things on DEI that make absolutely no sense, but people are believing that. Like, how do you believe on that? How do you believe in something that makes that no sense? Oh, a plane crash must be because of DEI. Really? So you're racist. So you're saying because the person is black or the person's Latino, the plane crashed. Because a white person can't cause an accident, right? Because a white person is smart, right? Because they're educated, right? But the black person or the Latino, they caused a crash. They got to go. So going backwards in time, Rosa Parks ended the civil rights movement or started the movement. We're going back in time by saying black people are bad, Latinos are bad. No. There isn't. Woke is a good thing. The Webster's Dictionary defines woke as, as an ideology of innovative thinkers and inventors. And that is a good thing. When Donald Trump or the right wings or whoever started said you're anti-woke, it's because that is what authoritarianism, that's what dictators do. They want to be the one to control you. They don't want you to think. They don't want you to invent. They don't want you to have a bright mind. They want to tell you what to think, what to say, what to do, and so on and so forth. They are telling you DEI is bad because they are bigots and they are racists. But I got to tell you something. Donald Trump, he has Latinos working for him. Just check out Mar-a-Lago. Check out his golf courses. You see, they're all Hispanics. Melania Trump is most likely not even an American citizen herself. Hell, Trump is not American. He's from Germany. He's from Germany. His real name is Trump. Trumpf. Yeah. But I digress about that. The Jeffrey Epstein file is the one that's going to kill Donald Trump directly. When enough people are talking about the same thing, and when a cult such as MAGA is agreeing with the Democrats and the liberals, you know there's something wrong. And of course, Donald Trump did the unthinkable yesterday by telling Pam Bondi to unseal the grand jury, something that's never going to happen because courts don't usually do that, especially when the trial is still ongoing. Now, again, this is the same story. It went from it doesn't exist to I'm going to release them to it was written by Obama to it's a Democratic hoax to stop talking about it to releasing to suing the Wall Street Journal for a hoax to telling your attorney general get the grand jury unsealed. Now, if it's a hoax, right? If there's a hoax, it means it never happened, right? If it never happened, there's no grand jury. If there's no grand jury, what are you releasing, right? If it's a hoax, what are you suing for? And if it doesn't exist, why is Maxwell in jail? Why don't you release her? You've pardoned all of the January 6 people. Why don't you pardon Ghislaine Maxwell? Right? You don't want her to talk, right? Why don't you shut her up? Right? And if it doesn't exist, why do you keep talking about it? If you want people to stop talking about it, why do you keep bringing it up? Does he think we're stupid? Does he think we're stupid? No. We're not stupid. But had you released the list, as you said you would, on the campaign trail and on your Fox News interview, none of this would have been happening right now. We would have had the people that are on that list, and they would have been dealt with accordingly. But since you've insisted and kept changing your story, that means you are scared because you are on this list. And I'll say it again, as I always say, facts matter. And the facts are that you are on video and pictures being seen with Jeffrey Epstein. And in the videos, you are actually seen with Jeffrey Epstein and a bunch of girls. Some maybe underage and some not. There's an article, profile of you in the New York Magazine from 1982. We are quoted as saying, Jeffrey Epstein is a dear friend of yours. There's an audio of Jeffrey Epstein saying the same about you. The truth always comes out. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually your past does catch up with you. And when that happens, you have to answer for that. And the only reason why you became president, again, is to hide from that, so you don't go to jail. But I have a news for you, Mr. Trump. When you're no longer president, you're going to pay for those crimes. You're going to have to answer. You're going to have to answer for those crimes at some point. I mean, you're 79 years old. But it doesn't matter. Look at Eichmann. He was caught years later on a secret mission to Argentina. He was tried for his war crimes during the Holocaust. And he was hung for his crimes. And yes, he was most likely in his 80s by the time they caught him. So if Eichmann could be tried for crimes years later, why would you be immune to that? And the fact that you're trying to rig the elections for the midterms by allowing Texas to redistrict and gerrymander so more Republicans are in the seats, well, that's against the law. And weren't you the one that was complaining how the Democrats stole the election from you? That you won the election and not the Democrats? And now you're doing exactly what you accused them of, but you're openly doing it? We all know how you won the presidency. Musk. I mean, you stole money from us Americans by dismantling agencies illegally that only Congress has the authority to do. You're burning food to starve children. You're kidnapping people at whim and then making up some BS crime to justify it. You're violating the Constitution by taking bribes, $4 billion bribes, might I add, that I can guarantee that if Biden did, he would have been investigated for. You're making tariffs that are illegal and unconstitutional and has been ruled as such. You told everybody you would end the Ukraine war on day one, and here we are, months later, we're still at a war. You're only a president in name only. You haven't done anything of any significance except show how cruel and heartless you are as a person. Show how you are truly racist and bigoted, which is not really a secret because we know you're a racist and bigot for many years. Exhibit A, Central Park 5. So at some point, you will pay. And we all know the Epstein files do exist. It's not a secret. You can cover it up as many, many times as you want. But I can guarantee you, if the Democrats were controlling the House and the Senate, that list would have been released already. And you would have been impeached. But one has to wonder now, who else is on that list? If you're doing everything you can, to get that list from ever seeing the light of day, it's only making it worse for you because the longer you talk about it, the more people are going to want to know about it. That's the cause and effect. Because people are going to ask themselves, why are you trying to hide it? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of us wanting to know? Who are you protecting? And I have no doubt that this is the one thing he's afraid of. This is the one thing that Donald Trump is afraid of. And the new conspiracy is the 3 minutes that were missing on the cameras in the jail cell, which is, was he murdered? Was it an inside job? Or did he indeed commit suicide? I don't think that's relevant to anything as of yet. But it's possible. Is it possible that he committed suicide? Yes, because a lot of people in jail end up doing that for different reasons. Was it possible that he was murdered and it was an inside job? It's possible. Do I know for sure? I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Facts matter. Let the facts come where they may. But the fact that he's been dead since 2019 and we're talking about it now, we're only talking about it because Donald Trump is allowing us to talk about it. Because when he keeps changing the story and he isn't letting it go, and he doesn't understand why people are fascinated by it, we have to wonder, is he too stupid to understand it? Or is he hoping people just forget about it like a cup of coffee? And on that, I'm going to end. All I'm going to say is we need to be careful because this is getting worse. And as American citizens, we need to worry because who knows what he's capable of. And I just hope and pray that the safety of our country that we fought for 250 years ago, we fought to escape the tyranny of British rule under King George. And I fear that everything we fought for to become the United States of America is slowly being taken from us and slowly being dismantled. And we can't let that happen. For if it happens, then the United States as we know it will cease to exist. And if that happens, then we cease to exist as well.